Good evening to all, and welcome to the Shatter After's official companion podcast to HBO's The Last of Us, where we seek the art beyond the clickers. How is everybody doing out there? I am Brandon Alvarado, the Scarlet fan, and I am accompanied by the Beyond the Clickers crew, Mr. Brett Mira.
I'm the QZ cutie.
Uh, I just saw that it says cutie. And the one and only Mike Thomas. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm the resident mycologist, the expert on all things fungi related. So if you have any questions regarding clickers, runners, bloaters, just throw them my way.
And of course, as one of your hosts, I'm Will Livingston's editor. And if you're able to catch that reference, I salute you. We're back. We're excited. It is Tuesday night, as you know, in the Shatter Apps channel. Tuesday night means we talk HBO's The Last of Us. This is a three-part show. First, we'll talk some news. We'll talk some highlights. We'll get our first impressions of the show. Then we'll dig into the episode and talk about the evolution, the adaptation, talk up the show in and of itself. And at the end, because we will never forget our fellow gamers out there, we'll go ahead and talk about of all the Easter eggs that are pound for pound taken and stayed and survived the adaptation from the game. So, guys, this episode, I would say, is the most accurate in terms of how it plays out in comparison to the others that had a lot of more freedom or chose to use a lot of more freedom to prepare us for the world that we're going into in The Last of Us. A lot of things happens, a lot of Easter eggs, I love a great setup for what's coming up. According to the preview, which was amazing, which we're going to talk about the preview of episode 5. But we're going to start with some
Haven't seen
couple
it.
news
Full
articles.
disclosure.
We're going to talk about a little bit about some news that we saw and some fun stuff that occurred over the weekend that, I don't know, we have to talk about it. There's no reason why not to.
Yeah.
Now, the first one is kind of a joke news tweet that Mike shared with us on the Beyond the Clickers chat that we found pretty amusing. Apparently, for some reason, the Wall Street Journal, which is a very trusted news source, chose the season where The Last of Us is showing on HBO to talk about, oh, just so you know, there's dangerous fungus that are evolving, and it's a virus, and it's a fungal virus. It causes valley fever. It's kind of dangerous, and yeah, we got to watch out.
Just so you know, the thing that they talk about in the show is actually happening.
I
mean,
love the timing, though. They waited for episode 2 to air. And it's like,
Yes.
yeah, don't worry. It's not going to evolve past this certain point. And they're just like, oh, actually, it might get that bad. It like
Actually, like a few more years, and
We'll
you
see.
have the
Exactly.
Thank you.
apocalypse.
So, guys, stop buying pancakes. Stop
Yeah.
buying cake mix. It's all about Chef Boyardee, people. I don't think we could have ever believed that Chef Boyardee was going to save the food industry, and I think it's time to go back. We got to go back Chef Boyardee and Capri Suns.
Did
Oh
you
wait,
not
what
watch
was it?
Ratatouille?
Vitamin C, Sunny D, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, those were the days. So yeah, just figure I'd share with you guys. Let us know what you think. I mean, I didn't read the full article, but I think reading this is enough. Look at the headline. The headline literally says, "Dangerous fungi are spreading across U.S. as temperatures rises." Like even the key words in that headline are meant to trigger people watching The Last of Us after the episode where the mycologist went, bomb.
Yeah.
Like
They're in our homes. They're everywhere.
yes.
She's like, there are no vaccines. There is no cure. Bomb everybody.
So one of these days, we're going to look in the past and go, the Wall Street Journal knew it all. It wasn't The Simpsons. It was the Wall Street Journal.
That's right.
Yes. Yes. Now, up to some real news that we care about. Pound for pound, every single episode of The Last of Us has got increasing viewership, according to an article on Collider, which again, this is just phenomenal. Another new high. It keeps climbing and climbing. Steve Buscemi numbers. Wait a minute. These are Bryan Cranston numbers, damn it. Better Call Saul. What's the name? Bob Oderick, Odenkirk. It's happening. In this, I'm reading the article here. For those who are abreast with all things television, it is no surprise that HBO's The Last of Us is one of the most beloved shows at the moment. And just like the contagious cordyceps fungus that has ravaged the continental US and the rest of the world on screen, the love for the series continues to grow rapidly. According to Variety, viewership for the show's latest episode comes in at 7.5 million viewers. This is a 17% increase on the 6.4 million viewers who watched the previous episode live. So we're talking Sunday numbers, people. Sunday's numbers, people. We're not talking rewatches. We're talking premiere numbers, just Sundays. So that number is steadily continuing to rise as people come back to the show, come back to the episodes and watch it. And interestingly enough, um, this episode didn't have to do the heavy lifting that the first episodes had to do. So I think this is where the heavy lifting on the previous episodes pays off because we actually just care about where the story is moving forward. So even in this episode that some might say is maybe lighter fare in comparison to the others, we're still so invested that we're just going to keep coming back. I mean, like literally, this is a dream for us, right? Like when you saw this, Brett, like we've seen this week after week after week. We're almost halfway through the season, and according to the preview of the next episode, it's probably going to be the biggest episode in the season so far in terms
Yeah.
of scope. Like it's crazy, bro.
It's wild to me like that, like every week the viewership has gone up, like, and I think episode 3, I wasn't able to join you guys last week, but I think that had a lot to do with it because there was a lot of just word of mouth and people recording reactions to it. And Nick Offerman was on Jimmy Kimmel, and I think Murray Bartlett also showed up on Kimmel or one of the other talk shows. So like they had all press during that week. So I think like the word of mouth started getting to other people, and everyone's like, oh, let me catch up, watch the 3 episodes, and then they jumped, they caught up and are into this now. So whoever is running like PR and marketing for this, and I think they're crushing it right now. They're doing the right thing, and I mean, listen, it helps that the show is good. It's excellent.
Yes.
I also find it just real quick very funny. There's that little sub headline under that we have on the screen now. It brings in even more new viewers despite airing during the 2023 Grammy Awards, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure all the award shows audience have been declining year after year for like the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm like, I don't know if that's like a high bar. Like, yeah. I could watch the Grammys and just see a bunch of nonsense, or I could watch like an incredible show. And
I'm gonna go with the show.
Oh my god. And just real quick. Oh my god, that episode 3, man.
Yes, let's take a minute. God. Brett, we didn't get a chance to hear your thoughts. Let's take a minute. Let's talk about it. When you watch episode 3, let's give him a solo shot, Mike. Episode 3, your thoughts. Take 2 minutes. Tell us. You saw it.
Hop on the soapbox.
Did you see it on Sunday? When did you see it?
So I saw it on Sunday as it aired. It was, I'm sure I'm not going to say anything that no one, like other people haven't said already. It was like one of the most just heartbreaking, well acted, well written episodes of television that I have ever seen. Like the fact that, it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I think we had it was a pretty nice, chunk, but the pacing was perfect. And like, such a detour, from the game, because this is backstory that we don't get. And even it's a little different than some of the backstory we do get in the game. So, but the fact that they were able to flesh out these 2 characters, one of which we never even, see alive in the game, and develop them in such a way and make me care about them in that time frame, and then just absolutely rip my heart out. Like my wife was like, also watched it with me. She's been watching every episode, and she was like, oh my god. And then she was like, it was the day before I left to go on my work trip. So she's like, I was upset all week because I was just thinking about that episode and like, God forbid losing you and stuff. And like, yeah, man, it just hit. And then like, I was just watching everything I could on it, like people's reactions and everyone else was saying. And, you got some, idiots out there that, just shitting on the episode because but I think for the most
Right.
part, like people were able to just like yeah, it was a non-traditional love story, and I give the writers and the producers and the showrunners and directors, everyone involved, credit for like having the balls to do that. I think it was a ballsy episode, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I mean, the performances were like, wow, that was like an acting masterclass, from both
Yes,
of them. So
100%.
that's my thoughts. That was just incredible television. And it's funny too, because like that was dangerous. It's early on in the season, to have like kind of like what we would call like a bottle episode where it's just kind of locked in, and where it pretty much ditches like our protagonists like for pretty much the entire runtime. I mean, what screen time do they have in there? Maybe like 10 minutes. Like I think literally like 70 minutes of it was just with like Bill and Frank, and
Yeah.
wow, just it's amazing how they were able to do that, and I can't wait. Like it makes me so much more excited for what's coming, because I know there's going to be, now I'm like, cool, they are going to take some chances and really just like give us stuff that I'm not familiar with, or that is different than what I know from the game, and that makes it more exciting. I know there's a contingent of people out there that like, I just want a shot for shot adaptation, and
Right.
maybe there is something to that. Like there is something cool to that. I guess play the hits, right?
Yeah.
But it makes me think of something like like the Lion King remake that they had recently, like where it was literally just a shot for shot remake. And I mean, while people, like, I'm sure, I know it was amazing visually, and I know a lot of people enjoyed it, and it's just, the nostalgia factor. But like for the most part, like a lot of the talk around that was that like it was boring. It was shot for shot. Like, what was the point of doing it?
There wasn't anything new.
Yeah, there
Right.
wasn't anything new. So like, and so far, nothing that they've changed or done that is new has like bothered me or irked me in any way. Listen, I'm sure it has for some people, but for me, it hasn't. And like I said, this episode had the biggest possibility to like irk people. But yeah, for me, it did not, and it was like totally worth it. And that's my thoughts. And then as a lead in back into this episode where we really get right back in, I think it works great. I think especially when, if you were one of those people that maybe were a little put off by it, or just like kind of were like, why is this episode here? It doesn't really move the plot along, so to speak. I think when the series is done and we see all, I think it's 10 episodes we're gonna have. Once we
Yeah.
get there and then you look back on it, I think you're really gonna see how special that episode was, and how it like how it fit in, and was and kind of earned its spot amongst those 10 episodes. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my quick thoughts.
No, and I think it all goes down to what you said. Like they had the balls to make that decision to do this thing, because it's like anything. One of the things that they talked about, like they do always with HBO shows, right? They do the into the episode at the end, right? One of
Right.
the things that they mentioned there is the fact that if something is will it's if something if we try to do something different but it ends up being horrible, then we stick exactly to how it's in the game. But if we start developing something and it looks like it's going to be better, it's going to elevate the story, the themes, because it's not just about, it's like you said, with adaptations and adaptations. I mean, a lot of people think that what's going to make a successful adaptation is playing the hits, right? Is doing all the things that we expect it to do. But there's such a thing as making it work within the medium, to experience new things. And especially when you go
Yeah.
from video game to television, right? You can't experience the same things via television like you're doing them now, right? There's no way that you can do that and experience that way, because they are doing all the right things, because they are taking chances and concentrating on the main themes of the show, of motivation to the characters. Um, I think that's what's keeping the interest going. Because
Yeah.
it's funny, because one of the things that's even more apparent now than it was in the game, because in the game, of course, you have Joel and Ellie in the center, and then you have like different couple of characters, right? Like you know that it was Sam and Henry, and which we talk a little bit about because we find them in the show at the end. But there wasn't really that much of comparison in terms of these two group of people. They've made it a point to show us what Joel and Sarah looks like, what Joel and Tess looks like, what Ellie and Marlene look like, what Ellie and Joel look like without Tess, what Bill and Frank look like, and the idea of using those paradigms of comparing those sets of characters to tell the same theme. That's
Right.
actually what's keeping me invested.
Yeah, it's
Because
about the
we're
relationships.
right.
It's all about the relationships in this world, and
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, we got to look at so many, and I'm sure I've made this. I feel like I've actually made this analogy before, maybe in one of the earlier episodes, or I'm losing my mind, one or the other. But like it's like when you go to like right when you go to a concert,
Right.
to see a band. And it's just they sound exactly like the album, which is like great. I'm glad they sound good and they don't suck live, but it's like, all right, I could have just listened to the album, in my car and saved money on a ticket. But like
This he's saying the
there's the fun
same.
of going, and you get, they jam out a little bit,
Right.
the drummer throws a different fill in than he uses in the album, just to kind of like throw you off, give it a little freshness. And that's what it is. It's like that, it's playing jazz. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
It's funny that
Yeah.
you say that. So I'm going to give you this concert story. Very simple. Because it really talks about exactly what you're saying. So I'm a low key Iron Maiden fan. Like I dig Iron Maiden, right? So one of
Yeah.
my favorite songs from Iron Maiden is Aces High. One of my favorite songs, right?
Great
Super
song.
metal song, awesome lyrics, right?
Yeah.
So me and my girl had the opportunity to go to see him and see him live. So we went to see him live. And what they do stage work wise, it's ridiculous and it's amazing. And suddenly I'm like, okay, they didn't play my song. It's okay. But then they come out with an encore. All the lights go off. And then as the opening riff of Aces High starts, these guys have a plane, like a full-on plane, just dangling from the scenery while they're playing the song. And I'm like, yo,
Yeah, give us the experience.
exactly.
So
And
That's awesome.
that is good.
The Last of Us is the Iron Maiden of video game
Yeah,
adaptation.
there you go. You heard it here
Yeah.
first, folks.
Yes, Iron Maiden of the. So, now enough with news. Let's talk about some fun stuff that happened during the weekend, which I think it ties with what you were mentioning, Brett, earlier about how the people with PR are actually doing a great job. Because not only did you have those great interviews after episode 3, right? We have Pedro Pascal host Saturday Night Live, which no matter how you feel about the longest running skit show ever, I would say, I'm a huge Saturday Night Live fan. And the fact that you have shorts like this one, where he's just dancing with the clicker, like this is ridiculous. But this is the kind of stupid content that gets everybody in that zeitgeist mindset of thinking of the show, thinking of that, and it's fun. But then they went a step forward and they did a skit.
So
Yeah.
the best line in that is, "I need to feel big." It makes me feel big. It is amazing.
No,
yeah,
and
like
you notice like the gloves are like a lot bigger than his hands. Like
yeah, they
Yeah.
nailed that. Like everything was spot on. They used all the sound effects. Like whoever wrote that is obviously like a big fan, because they absolutely nailed it.
Yeah,
yes.
it's just funny because one, this is redemption, right, from the Elon Musk Wario skit, and it's like they came back, they redeemed themselves, but also when they booked Pedro Pascal, this is the first skit they wrote, because usually they have like a week to get this together. But
Yeah.
when they saw him on the schedule, they're like, we've got to make a video game one, and they
Yeah.
probably
Yes,
had
it
an
has to
extra
happen.
like 3 or 4 weeks to get this done and mapped out, which is hilarious. It really made
No,
for
and it's very easy because you got to think about it logistically. They probably did almost everything without him, because a few shots that they have with him,
Oh yeah.
they probably just did it after.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's been in the pipeline for a while and it shows. And it just,
pipes.
You did it. You did the thing.
yeah. Oh no, man, this is awesome. It was so good. It was, and the idea that she has to be delivered to Rainbow Road, like that's just the
Yeah.
line, right? Like it's.
Oh,
He's
what? Oh, go Mike. No.
I was just gonna say it's funny because this would like we have so many shows where you have to smuggle people anyways. Like, of course, why not just give him a third one? The second one where he's got to fight mushrooms. Why not? It's on brand for Pedro Pascal at this point.
Exactly. It's just yes.
I was gonna say fun little thing on my trip. I probably didn't tell you guys. So I sell a brand of wine called Casillero del Diablo, which is
Oh
from
yeah.
Chile, which is where Pedro Pascal is from. So he's actually the spokesperson for that brand that I sell. So while I was on my trip, they did show us. I don't know when it's gonna air or where it's gonna air. It might be on YouTube, but he shot a new commercial for the wine, and it's great. Like it's really funny, and just like seeing this, I'm like, and him dancing with the clicker and stuff like that. Like Pedro Pascal just seems like such a fun dude, and he's just like down for whatever. And
Yeah.
what a career. I mean, like not a career, but like yes, a career. But like
Yeah.
what a run he's had in the last like couple of years. I mean, like Narcos, Game of Thrones, now this, The Mandalorian. Like he's everyone, and everyone
Wonder
is him.
Woman 84.
Wonder Woman 84. Cannot forget that. He was like probably the best part of that movie, and I like that movie. I'm not one of the ones that hate it. So, but he was really good in that, and
He's
he
the one.
really he's the one.
He was good,
Um,
but the
yeah.
movie could have been better.
eh,
That's the joke. Move on.
yes.
No, but yeah, like he's in everything, and everything he's done so good.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. I know for a fact that when people saw it, it's like, oh my god, Chris Pratt. Like,
Yeah.
like it's okay. It's a multiverse. They can all be, they
Yeah.
can have their own universes.
Exactly.
Every time Pedro Pascal comes in, he does another chapter of Mario.
I'm gonna be that guy and just say Pedro Pascal was better. In this weird gritty take, I somehow got more Mario energy from him than I have from Chris Pratt so far.
Inside joke. I don't know why, but I have a feeling that when Mario, my cousin, saw this, he came out upset because Toad still got destroyed.
Yes.
What
Oh
is
my
it?
God, he
What
cannot
is
get
it with
away from
Toad
that.
just getting like
Toad always getting murdered. I mean, this gave me strong like Mario Brothers 93 vibes in all the best ways. And
Yeah.
I think they were definitely channeling that. And I want to let you know that if they made this movie, I would 100% see it. And
1000% for me.
yeah, I mean, I would be there and I would see it, and I would give it an A+ rating, even if it was bad.
I'm just gonna go on
Just-
Letterboxd to be like 5 out of 5 cinema.
Yeah.
That's the
So
review.
Brett, why did you like it? Because it made me feel big.
Yeah, it made me feel big.
So
Very
moving
good.
on, how about we jump into the episode, guys? This episode was titled episode 4. Please hold to my hand, which is a line from the song "Alone and Forsaken" by Hank Williams, which played in the second trailer of The Last of Us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also played during the trip, right? A lot of I think this is going to be the hardest. Go.
Weird music trivia for The Last of Us. So like the last trailer, like the third trailer, I think, had Take On Me, right?
Yes.
It has since been removed, and now it's just generic trailer music, and we do not understand why.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
It's weird. I don't get it.
Maybe they didn't really get the rights, and someone was like, "Hey, you didn't get the rights."
I assume so, but also maybe they're like, we're gonna hold on to that for season 2 now because it's not really relevant to season 1.
Yeah.
So, and that's so interesting because they've been using part 2 music
Yeah.
in this show.
Yeah.
Which to me it's been like the end, the credits music.
It was a
is the
Depeche Mode
song.
cover. Yeah. At the end
Yeah.
of this episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the music from that first, or I think it was the second Last of Us Part 2 trailer. Like it was like a huge cinematic trailer with Ellie.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the episode. This is going to be one of those episodes that's going to be very hard to not talk about the game because, like we mentioned at the beginning, it is one of the most faithful episodes game wise. It does start with some original content, but it really just goes into that game story from there on out. And um, the first thing we want to talk about is the opening scene with Ellie, right? We saw at the end of episode 3 as she's looking around wearing the Last of Us attire, just like in the cover. She finds Frank's gun and she has it in her pack. And one of the things that occurs in this episode is that she's been asking for a gun since episode
Hmm.
one, maybe episode one, episode two. She's been episode one actually. She's been asking for a gun. She finally has one, and one of the things that's very interesting and I think was very brilliant, as we move further into the episode, is that they do a good job of showing the child in Ellie that doesn't understand what Joel understands, which is the reason why Joel never wanted her to have a gun, the reason why Tess never wanted her to have a gun, is that one thing is that dichotomy of what she imagines is going to be she having a gun and the reality of the violence that comes with a gun
Right.
and how that impacts what it is to be innocent, what it is to be a child, what it is to be a growing person, the ability of hurting someone. And I love how the episode starts with the scene and how beautifully it informs what happens later, right?
Yeah.
Um, how do you guys feel having that first moment of Ellie, like just seeing her be herself alone, just being a kid? When you guys saw that, what was your reaction to it?
It's so true to life. Like that is a 14-year-old girl
Yeah,
just being silly, imagine, having using her imagination, like I mean, like glorifying something she doesn't understand. Like it shows her naivete, you know what I mean?
right.
And
Yep.
great job doing that, because obviously, like, she's gonna undergo a huge transformation, I'm sure, by the end of the season. And
Yeah,
that's just great writing, great directing to like get that on screen and really show that. And then, even from within the, like you said, you mentioned it already, from within the episode, how we see then, and then when stuff goes down, it that hit much harder because
right.
of that moment in the beginning. It's just, this is just great. This is great stuff.
Yes.
Great
And
character.
also,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mike, if you have something.
No, I was just gonna, add Bella Ramsey. This is just again highlighting why she's great as Ellie, right? The first episode we don't meet her until like 2/4 of the way through, roughly. And then the third episode she's barely in it at all because it's Bill and Frank's story. So I really appreciate the simplicity of this opening, right? Because we kind of see that split of how messed up this world is, where she feels the need to have a gun and protect herself and try and be this like badass like character, because she's seeing that's how Joel is, that's how Tess was, that's how Marlene is, and that is the only way to survive in this world. But also, flip of a switch, she's still 14, and I love how
Yeah.
Bella's able to play both sides so well, to where you really understand where Joel's coming from, where he's like talking to her like, you have no idea how the world works, you have no idea why or what it means to kill someone. Like, even though she later on admits that she has had to do it before, it still doesn't quite register like the weight of that, because she doesn't have the real world experience for it, which I think, again, beautifully captured in these first like 10 minutes of the episode.
Yeah. And this is a perfect time for me to mention too. I wanted to blurt this out before we started recording, and I was like, Brett, hold yourself back. This episode, especially because I think this is like really, I feel like the most time we really had with Ellie was this episode. This, like, she's like
Yes.
in like every shot almost. But
Yes.
yeah, Bella Ramsey is like totally turning into Ellie for me. Like, in some lighting, in the way I look at her, like she looks like the character model almost. Like, I don't know, she's totally taking on that role, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, she's Ellie. Because when they first cast her, I was just like, I hadn't seen Game of Thrones, so I was like, I don't
We know,
know.
Brett. We know.
Yeah, we know. I have to mention it every episode. I'm contractually obligated to mention that I have not watched Game of Thrones
The
every
check
episode.
doesn't clear unless he says it,
Yeah,
guys.
that's right.
Correct.
That's right. Thank God. Need that bank account to go up. So like, yeah, when she was cast, I didn't know anything about her. I didn't just based on the looks, like, she's got a different look than the character model. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the character model has maybe like softer features, like stuff like that. So I was like purely just going off like appearance. But then, and then, like you said, the first episode we only really saw a little bit of her. The second episode we saw her, but and then third she's not really there. And this episode, I was like, oh my God, she's Ellie. Like, she is like, she's got it. She nailed it. I love her. I love her like how I loved her in the game. She really
Yeah.
has just
Yes.
taken on the role and given it so much depth and same with Pedro Pascal. But yeah, she's been killing it. She killed it this episode. She had me laughing out loud like several times. I mean,
Yo.
it helps that the writing is great. You know what I mean? But she delivered.
Yes.
She has the delivery down on a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Like, hold on, it's only my second time in a fucking car. Like, that's great. She was so good. She was so good.
Yes.
I love how much, like, yeah, you're right, the writing's good, but there's just so much of Ashley Johnson in that performance, right? Where
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cadence of her voice and the line delivery is like
Yes.
identical, but it's not like she's trying to copy her. Like it
Yes.
just feels
Right.
like
She's
natural,
making it her own.
right?
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And I think what I appreciate the most of that opening scene is that you can tell that the writers understand the importance of allowing the audience to understand that this kid is ignorant to the realities of the world. You know, it's just because again, she was raised in a Fedra orphanage or whatever inside the QZ. She's never been out. Like, she really doesn't understand how bad it can really be. And that ignorance is what shows. That's why she plays with the gun. That's why she doesn't take it seriously until she actually pulls the trigger later on. Like, apart from the lightheartedness, that's part of the character. But I think us being able to see the ignorance in her as a kid, in a scene that has no dialogue, and then,
Mhm.
of course, you go back to all the conversation you had with Joel. It's just great. And like you mentioned, bro, like this is the first time we spend the much time with Ellie also, because when you think about it, this is the episode where Joel and Ellie really begin.
Yeah.
This is The Last of Us. This is where it begins. Because in the game, by the time you get to Bill, you already are the duo of Joel and Ellie, right? You walk around the town. It's you, Ellie, and Bill going and doing what you need to do. So that duo, that relationship has already been cemented. So by the time you get to the road trip portion, you're just continually to foster that and grow that and nurture that, right? But in the show, because of the great storytelling that they have with other things, this is where it begins. So I love the fact that we spend the first 10 minutes of them just getting acquainted with each other in a way that we've never seen him before. Which is why I appreciate the fact that we didn't just go get in the car and get straight to our destination. We actually had a couple of stops along the way.
Yeah.
We had to siphon gas, and Ellie got on Joel's nerves. Like, again, I don't know why, but I got a feeling that these are the two people that you want to go on a road trip with. And especially they have a bunch of Bill stuff.
Right.
Yes.
Like, the moment, like, so many things, beat per beat happened. Like, the whole thing with the magazine, which is great.
Right.
Which, if you guys look at it, Easter egg for those that haven't played the game, but still, it's not a spoiler. That is the same magazine as the game.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same cover and everything. It's ridiculous how crazy it is. And of
It's the same
course,
car. Like
same
it didn't even
car.
why
Yeah.
would you make the same car? You did not have to get the same truck for this shot, but
Right.
they did it.
But they
Yeah.
did it. Um, and then that line, literally, Ellie finds a cassette of music, gives it to Joel, and say, "Hey, brings you back memories." Joel literally says, "Oh, this is before my time, but it's a winner though."
Yeah.
The song's not the same, but the dialogue, the idea of, if you guys are noticing, Joel is, without noticing, he's like letting loose. He's letting Ellie in comparison to other episodes, right? So
Yeah.
so like he's finally, it's sinking in that he needs to do this. And
Right.
I don't know, I appreciate these quiet moments, especially for all the madness that comes after, right?
Right. Right.
But of course, I do have to say this because I said this on the first episode that we recorded, episode 0, where we talked about the things that we wanted, and I got what I wanted.
The smash cut.
Not just that. I got the smash cut, the Snyder cut. No, I got what I
Oh
wanted.
boy.
No pun intended. By
Yeah.
Will Livingston. Oh, I cannot. I couldn't. My cheeks hurt. How much I'm smiling when Ellie literally just goes, "You asked for it," and she pops the book out and starts saying the puns. What did the mermaid bring to her math class?
An algebra.
and
You know,
and Joel's response, like, Jesus, you can go wait in the car.
but this is again how you know Bella Ramsey is a winner, right, in this role,
Yes,
because that's a
so good.
terrible pun. It's not particularly funny,
It's the
but
delivery.
her laughing at the joke makes
Right.
me laugh at the joke, and it's like, oh, she's so sweet.
And I love how you have that moment. Since you created that quiet moment while Joel is siphoning the gas, you know, again, keeping it grounded, like you said, it's nearly water, blah blah blah. Because we introduced it organically here, as she continues to bring more puns throughout the episode, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like these two people, like that's Ellie trying to find some type of common ground with Joel,
Right.
and it's freaking charming.
It is. It is. The one at the end of the episode, I think within 24 hours, I repeated to people 5 times
Yeah,
in real life.
yes, that's the one. That's the
That's
one.
great.
That's the
That's the one.
tagline for my Easter eggs article on Collider. If you click on it, like that's the first thing you guys will see. Because I'm like, it's too good. I can't add anything to that. They're just gonna
It's so
steal
good.
it.
It's so good.
Yes, yes. Now we don't get to Pittsburgh
Yeah.
because we're not
That's
going
a
to
little bit of a
Pittsburgh.
change. No Pittsburgh.
It's a little bit of a change.
We go to
But
Kansas
before
City.
Diary of Secretary, it runs in
Jeez.
yeah.
I love my editors. They let me get away with so much nonsense over there.
Yes, that's a good job. Now, I love how not only are they showing Ellie doing her thing, but I love how they're really giving us more quiet. I love how much storytelling we're getting of these characters without words,
Mhm.
just seeing them do things. We had
Yeah.
that moment with Ellie at the beginning, and then we had a moment with Joel where when they're sleeping in the woods, and we get the whole scarecrow one outstanding in his field. So
Yeah.
good. So when she talks, when the little kid comes in and she goes like, "But nobody can find us here, right? Like we're okay, right? Like we're okay here in the forest." And then suddenly Joel, the protector, kicks in, and he doesn't sleep, and he's just stays awake trying to keep an eye out, which he didn't have to do that. I mean, not correction, he had to, but he felt he had to. But then it goes back to the fact that he has failed to protect the people entrusted to him so much that he's just in that automatic mode.
Right. Well, he
Of
knows how dangerous this
right.
world is.
He is not
He's
ignorant.
yeah, he's like, yeah, he's not naive. She's naive. He knows the horrors of this world and the kind of people that are out there, because as we also kind of learned in the episode, he is one of them. And so that yeah, that was great, that was a really interesting angle to take with
He
that.
has
That
an
was really
idea
cool.
what loss is.
Yeah. You might
Oh,
say.
no, I love how you mentioned like he is one. G-Techie in the chat says, I like how she asked what a siphon is, then proceeds to tell Joe he doesn't know what he's talking
Because he's like, it's the gravity. And she's like, you have no idea. He's like, well, I know it works.
about.
Little
Gold.
wise ass.
Yes, so good. So
Yeah.
good. Uh I like you mentioned, Brett, I like the idea that he is one. Like I love how in a way Joel is the world to Ellie in terms of he knows how bad the world can be because Joel knows how bad he can be.
Right.
Joel knows how far he is willing to go to protect or to do what needs to be done. So I love how in this episode we kind of get a glimpse of that when she starts talking about how he met the group with Tess, Tommy, the things that they needed to do to survive. The conversation as they're going up the stairs where Ellie goes, "Have did you ever hurt innocent people?"
Yeah.
And no words, like, but you know the answer,
Yeah.
you know, and the idea that we have to accept that answer, which again, I love. Like one day we were talking about, remember, I don't know, Mike, if you remember, we're talking about Quentin Tarantino movies. And one of the things that's brilliant about Quentin Tarantino, especially with like Django, Hateful Eight, Inglourious Bastards, and movies like those, is that Tarantino, his movies and his writing is so good because from the get-go he tells you these are bad people. I'm not writing about good people. Or these people, they're all horrible people. So
Yeah.
when you see them doing the most horrible of things, you're not surprised by it. So then you concentrate in the conversations, you concentrate in the characters, which is kind of what's happening here.
Right.
Guys, go listen to the RRR discussion because that's where that Tarantino talk happened. For some reason, there was a lot of Tarantino and our rise, roar, revolt conversation.
Which is
But
the Tagulu film, which is
yes,
amazing. But yes.
yeah,
Now we go to Kansas City and we see the
Kansas
block.
City.
Yes, not Pittsburgh. We go to Kansas City
Yeah.
and we see a blockade. Now, I got to say it, this happens in the game. Brett, when you saw this, how excited were you? Like, okay, this is happening. And the fact that, like, for example, if anybody was asking Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason to play the hits, buddy, they're playing the hits. They're
Yeah.
playing the hits on this episode.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I love seeing that stuff, and it works. It works. It works. It did what it needed to do. It made them go through a detour. It made them run into trouble. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, I love this stuff. For that's for us, right? That's for us who
Right.
have played the
Right.
game, and you know, not for me who only played it once, but for sickos like you who just keep playing it over
Yes.
and over again.
Yes.
Um, like to torture yourself emotionally.
No
Yeah,
doubt about it. I'm ready to get hurt again.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
for us. But yeah, man, it's cool. Yeah, it doesn't matter that it's not Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like it still serves the purpose. So
Yep.
Can
100%.
can
Go.
we just, this is me being a nerd for a second. Can we just acknowledge that that the Last of Us version of Kansas looks more like Gotham City than the Nolan trilogy ever did? Like, I just think that's hilarious. Like, come
So
on.
what are you saying? Is that the entrance to Arkham City? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, like you get through this tall building up here is clearly just going to be like Wayne Enterprises or whatever, and like the further you go, you get down the windy road up to Arkham. It's just
Yep.
funny.
yeah, because Nolan went to Chicago with it, and it was just like modern Chicago City.
Chicago.
As somebody in the Midwest, it looks better than Chicago half the time anyway. So it's like
right.
you should just did normal Chicago then. Sorry.
right.
So we arrive to this place. We find this guy saying, "Help me." And because of the thing, and I love how the subtext of the dialogue, because that's the beauty of this writing, right? There's so much subtext. Like Joel doesn't say much, but he's saying a lot. Like in the things we needed to do to survive and stuff like that. So when he sees this guy and sees that he says, "Help me," he doesn't question it. He already
Yes.
knows what's happening.
I know your tricks.
Yep. Yep. And he goes, "Put your seatbelt on." Which, by the way, now Ellie knows what a seatbelt is. So
yes.
it's her second day in her car. And literally, gun, brick, crash,
Yep.
just like the game. They have to get out. I love how, even though it's almost a beat for beat, the action made sense. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like it was like it was the right amount of antagonists. You only had like three people, right? He takes one with the rifle, and he plays the game move. Ellie hides inside the wall. He hides, and he catches the other one by surprise, and that's how he wins. But
Right.
because this world is like that, he then gets surprised.
Yep.
I
and then it
love
happened.
the sorry.
Go.
I love the parallel though from the first episode because when it's Joel, Tommy, and Sarah
Yes.
driving, people are asking for help, and he just keeps driving, saying someone else will come.
Yep.
Now he and Ellie are driving. It's just like, yeah, they're actually the bad guys now. That's how far the world has fallen. But the moral of the story is, if you need help, do not trust Joel Miller. He will just drive on by, no
Yeah.
matter what situation.
Unless you're already in the car. If you're already in the car, he will die for you. But
Right.
if you're not in the car, just stay away.
Yes, he ain't even hurt. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, that first of all, that little that sequence there was like for people that were like episode 3 didn't have enough action. There was like a nice little amount of action in this, and
Yes.
it wasn't like the whole episode, but when it hit, it hit. Like that shootout was very very tense. When Joel gets blindsided, awesome shot of him. He turns around and just uppercuts the guy right in the face with the butt of the gun, and you see the gun go off like in the air, and I was like, oh, that was a close one. And then yeah, Joel almost bites it before Ellie has to come in, and then that whole sequence with that guy like begging for his life was rough, man. That was really rough. And then even more especially when Ellie goes back behind the wall, and okay, Joel's gonna be a real bad guy right now. And the
You know what
guy's
happens?
screaming for his mom, and Joel's like, you before that, I think you just see Joel pull the knife out, and then you just hear him scream for his mom, and then silence. And I was like, oh, Joel's not a good guy, huh? Like that's like a thing that I like that they really hammered home here, that like, yeah, he's and that's like, one of the things we talk about in episode 0 with one of the things with the game is that, oh, I'm the protagonist, so I need to stop all these guys. I'm the
Yes.
good guy, I'm the protagonist. And the show is I like how they're really hammering it home and bringing those elements from the
Right.
game into here to show you that, like, yeah, he may be protecting Ellie, but he is not a good guy, man. Like he is not. And listen, this is a guy that's been unfortunately for 20 years doing this shit, so this is regular for him now. I mean, they have a great talk later in the episode. It's not that it gets any easier, but like this is like a normal occurrence now, and it's just like can't leave anybody hanging around.
Right. There's no such thing as crossing a line anymore. It's
Yeah,
just it's either I do it or
yeah.
I get done, right? Like
It's kill.
it
It's kill or
needs
be
to happen.
killed, right?
Right.
That's it. And but yeah, that was actually rough. That was a rough scene to watch and listen to. Like it was shot and done very well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And acted very well, and it was like disturbing a little bit. I'll say it. It was like definitely I was like, oof. Like I literally like I think I literally did that like to my wife. Like after that, I went, ooh, like I had to take a deep exhale because it was like, oh, it was rough.
It's so
Go.
disturbing because the kid makes a point to say, I can't move my legs. So like it's not like he was gonna run away or get
Yeah.
help or report
like,
it.
"My
Yeah,
mom's
It's
like it
like,
looks
close,
like when
just get me
Ellie
to my
shot
mom."
her. It looks like when Ellie were in the location where Ellie shot him. Yeah,
Lower back.
probably busted his spine
They
or
did the
something.
X-Men First Class.
yes,
with,
they
Magneto,
did.
Magneto and McAvoy.
Whoop.
Yeah, whoop.
Right into the
I can't feel
spine.
my legs. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it's like, and so it's like, if he wasn't either he bleeds out or somebody eventually finds him and helps him, Joel had no reason to kill that guy.
yeah,
Because so it really just kind of hammers home that Joel needlessly murdered this kid out of rage, or he thought he was protecting Ellie or whatever, like frustration.
yeah.
It didn't need to happen, and this is one of the second time, like you were saying, Brett, like he didn't have to like beat the guard to death. Like once he's
Yeah.
knocked out, you were already leaving the QZ. You did not
Right.
have to kill him. And
Yeah.
so
I
not
mean, I
like they're
guess
gonna
the
go
guy could
follow
have
you.
identified them and been like, it's an older guy in a brown jacket and a young girl, maybe that. But like, yeah,
Maybe.
he's not. Joel don't take chances. It's just you're done. Sorry, man.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because there's a note from the podcast with Neil and Craig, and one of the things that they talk about is that part of the frustration that he has at that moment, especially as he goes into the conversation with Ellie
Yeah.
afterwards, right, is the fact that he failed to protect Ellie again. and so he's constantly dealing with that because his drive, his purpose is to, like Bill said to Frank, like you have been my purpose. Joel's purpose is to protect those around him, and he keeps failing at that. He's
Yeah.
not that good at that. So these are the kind of moments where those you can see this keep eating away at him because he needs to take charge, and the way he takes charge is like in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Um, so I I find it fascinating, especially like this is another tour de force in terms of acting with Bella as well, because that whole sequence, I mean, she's scared shitless, right? Everything, all this is happening,
Yeah, she's
and she
shook,
goes like,
you know.
and in the minute, and for a second, she thinks, "Oh wait, I have a gun," but then after she gets there, fear takes over, and when she pulls the trigger and sees what she's done, she's broken. You can see her like break apart, but because of how vicious the moment was, and because of how much she's looking to connect with Joel, when she goes back to the other side of the wall, she's just wiping her tears and just like, okay, I gotta pretend like I gotta keep on, I
Yeah.
gotta keep going. And what a horrible place, like what a horrible world to grow up in.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Last little tip before we move on, because we have two big characters that we have to talk about. We have to talk about. I got Last of Us Part Two vibes, and I got a little. There's a little bit of that in Part One. Actually, not as detailed, but did you guys notice how all the people that were fighting them were screaming people's names?
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
that's like, if you hear a gun, if there's a gun, a gun, a gunsling battle, or people shooting, there's an war going on, you take it as regular action, right? But there's an effect psychologically, emotionally, when you hear someone's name, right? Like it just hits you different.
Yeah, they're not cannon fodder anymore. You
Right,
know, and
right,
yeah, like he even like yeah, the before Joel killed that kid, he went, "I'm Brian, I'm Brian." Like he, you know, like that's like a thing. Like just I'm trying to level with you on a human level. I'm
right.
another human, please. Like you know, and
It's
yeah, and that was like a big development that they did in the games for part two. Is like
right.
they wanted to make you really feel bad about all the violence you were committing.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's like
so
the
it's
anti-violence gun game. Like
yeah,
it's
I mean, it
crazy.
makes sense. They don't even give you ammo in that game, if we're gonna be real.
yeah,
So
I don't think they give you ammo in any of the games.
no,
yeah.
but
I really don't.
yeah, I also think it's interesting. Like Joel could have just shot the guy because they were already in a shootout, but like he made the most brutal, violent act he could have. And
Which you
on one
could
hand,
think he's
Got to
saving ammo.
conserve those bullets. Got to
yeah, I
conserve
know it's
those
the last
bullets,
of
You
us,
man.
mean
right?
It's
those
Resident
toad
Evil.
shells?
Gotta you
The
gotta
shells?
shoot in the knee and then knife swipe the head a million times. Save those
Yeah,
bullets for the boss.
I mean, good thing too because he's got a bloater coming up very
Yeah,
soon.
I was
It
gonna
looks
say.
like.
I think he's conserving
Yo,
ammo for the bloater encounter.
yo.
That'd be crazy if he's like he takes the bloater out. He's like, I had one bullet left. It's like, oh well,
Yeah,
that made sense.
yeah,
But G-Tech, says, Joel, I'm bad at this. Ellie, yeah, you really are.
Yo,
Her
yes.
attitude has no limits, none at
And
all.
that's why she's Ellie. Like it's just because of that. Um Now we met the hunters. Like this is typically an adaptation of the hunters arc of the game. Um but we have two new characters. They're original to the show. They've made the decision to create the character of Kathleen, that's played by Melanie Linsky, which is phenomenal as Kathleen. Um, what a great! I find it so interesting how she has a lot of qualities that Joel has. Like she has like this broken intensity in everything that she does, which I find interesting and phenomenal. Makes you a very interesting character. And we've only been with her for what, like maybe 10 minutes,
yeah,
and I'm very interested in invested in her. And then you have Perry, which is played by the voice actor of Tommy in the game, which it's so cool. And it makes me and it makes me think about it too, because when you see Gabriel Luna in the first episode, he sounds like Tommy. And now
yeah.
we're seeing Tommy that sounds like Tom.
Yeah.
It's like it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
But when you guys saw the introduction of Kathleen, what were your thoughts when you first saw her?
go Brett.
I mean, I like the actress. It's funny. I like 2 weeks ago, I just watched this movie. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. It's her and Elijah Wood. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I think
Oh,
it's on
nice.
Netflix. Little indie film. Cool little movie. I enjoyed it. So yeah, and I've seen she's popped up in like a bunch of stuff recently. I'm trying to think what else. I've seen her in like a lot of stuff. I feel like she's one of those actors. You're like, oh, I know her. She's one of those. She's one of those
I don't know
people.
who you are, but I know you.
Yeah. And I didn't know her name really until like honestly like last night, like her actual name. But I'm like, I see her in everything. She's one of those actors that pops up. Yeah, she's great. I mean, yeah, she's that's one of those things. Like, hey, these are new characters, but like, yeah, I totally believe they exist in this world. And I guess while we're talking about these characters and them replacing the hunters, I thought this was a really cool like a neat angle, right? Like, this
Yeah.
this area that was a Fedra QZ where, she ends up being their trusted leader and like successfully like, raised the rebellion and got Fedra out of there. And like she kind of like cockily actually that might have been in the preview for the next episode, but she's like, we're free.
Yeah.
Like so,
So is she
free, whatever
Andor?
that means in this world. But yeah.
She's the
It's
Cassian Andor of the Last of Us universe.
yeah, almost.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like the intensity and everything that she does. Um, I love how she is the type of character that has built this confidence and rapport with everybody. Because as soon as she gets in that soapbox, everybody's just yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And I also like Perry's character. Is like the
Yeah.
right hand. But I love how he is like he follows her because she knows she's in charge, but he also kind of like don't necessarily agree with everything she's doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So I like that dual side of things because it makes it a lot more grounded. And also like with the hunters arc in the game, like you're just passing through, and so you really don't deal with the group as if the group was a problem. They're just an obstacle to you move forward. So I
Right.
love how you're giving identity to the group. You're giving identity to why they did what they did. So I do find that very interesting and very powerful.
Right.
So
They're not
apparently
just a
there's
combat encounter, like they're
exactly,
actually like,
exactly.
um
Now the interesting thing about all this is that they're looking for someone. Mike, who are they looking for?
They're looking for two characters named Henry and Sam, and I'm not entirely sure what their whole deal is. But I think it's a very clever way to tie these stories together, right? Because since these are original characters, we don't know what's going to happen. Like we have an
Right.
idea of what the end result might be, but like
Right.
the next episode or two, the journey to that point is going to be a really fascinating watch. And I just want to address G Techie's comment here because I thought it was interesting talking about Melanie's performance. The comment says, "I'm sorry, but I did not buy Kathleen's performance. She sounds too wholesome and soccer momish to be badass. Seems as though she bakes muffins all day." And like, I think that's part of the.
And they're probably good muffins too.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can't eat muffins anymore because but
Damn it, Wall
um,
Street Journal.
but I think that's kind of the point, right? It's not that she is this hardened, cold person like Joel has become, or even as Tess had become. I
Right.
think she's just a really strong leader, and her mom-like qualities are probably what keeps that group together.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think she's a very different type of threat and antagonist for Joel to go up against. And so that to me is the most fascinating part about it, is that she does still have that wholesomeness quality to her, even though she's clearly dealing with something with her brother and this doctor that we're meeting for the first time. And even when she pulls the gun out, it doesn't seem like she really wanted to go that far. But once she got to that point, her entire demeanor changed. Like, this is what I have to do.
Right.
Yeah, it's like she was chosen, like maybe before everything went to shit, she was a soccer mom,
Yeah.
like so to
Right.
speak, like like she was kind of like and I think that kind of what it shows because G-Tech, I have to say, like, I think when I first saw her on screen, like the first scene or two, I was kind of feeling that way as well. And having seen other performances of hers, it was kind of like I was getting that vibe too. But then by the end of the episode, like I got it. But it's like, yeah, she's this person that was, you know, like I said, maybe a soccer mom, but was chosen by circumstance. And I like that take because, like, I mean, how many times have I seen the hardened badass leader? You know what I mean? We have enough of that. You know, we didn't need like another Tess. You know, we had Tess. We
Right.
had Tess. She's gone.
Right.
So I think to see something, and I'm curious, and kind of like you see that she's obviously gained the respect of the people she's with, and she clearly has the respect of Perry, who looks like he was probably like ex-military or something like that. He seems
Of
pretty
course.
like he knows what he's doing. You
He's
know what I
probably
mean?
the guy from Fedra that she turned.
Yeah, maybe, you know, like, but
Mm.
he's the guy that can really be the enforcer, and she can. It's kind of like good cop, bad cop. So I think, like, as a duo, I think that's what you need to watch out for. So maybe if you're not intimidated by Kathleen, you don't buy it. You know, I think her and Perry together might be something a little dangerous, a little spooky, you know, for our protagonist to encounter. But no, good call, G Techie. But yeah, like I like to always I'm a very much a benefit of the doubt person. So as a first intro, let's see, you know, how you know the characters turn out by the end of this like part of the arc, you know.
Yeah, and I think also the whole point of a character like Kathleen, especially, I think it works to the advantage that she comes off like Jiteki says, like the soccer mom, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the whole point of that type of character is this is how dark this world can make you,
Yeah.
and
I don't want to be this person, but I have to be this person.
right, right. Because, for example, from the first episode on Outbreak Night, we already know what Joel's capable of. If he's gonna need to protect someone, he took that Grammy down like quick with that Rich. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna do what needs to be done. It's not something that he grows into. It's something that he's now feeding because the world requires it. But
Right.
she has grown into this dark side of her that maybe nobody sees how cold and calculating she can be. Because you also get a little bit of the politician side of her when we discover what Perry shows us.
Yeah.
Because Perry says, when are we going to tell the others? And she goes, we're not going to tell them anything yet. And he literally goes, he literally goes, bruh. Like,
Yeah.
like we need to, like, and she goes, no, we're going to handle what we can handle. And that's literally her dark side too. Like, it's not just like, it's not that she's scared of it necessarily, but she's afraid of how people are going to react because she's created this safe haven. But now we have something underneath. When you guys saw that, that was to me the biggest surprise. And I love the fact that I am a, a huge fan of the game. I know what the story is. This is not in the game, and it just blew my mind. Brett, when you saw this thing and how it was going, like,
Yeah.
what was your reaction?
I was thinking, trust the fungus.
Oh jeez.
No, it was, but no, that was interesting. I was like, oh, that's interesting, and I was like, oh, I'm like, is this a sinkhole with a bunch of fungus underneath it? And I think that's probably what it is. It's like
And it's
something
live.
is rotting underneath there, you know.
It's crazy. I, Mike, when you first saw that, whenever it was, what
Yeah.
was your reaction when you saw that?
My first reaction. Hold on, I just got it. G Techie says I was thinking Rat King, hoping. Oh, that'd
I'm
be
not
wild.
going to comment on that,
We got to save that for later.
but I feel you, D-Techie. I feel you.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
if it was a hospital. We're gonna leave it at that.
maybe. But yeah, when I first saw that, for me, I had a really weird experience because I had to binge this thing to get the review up. So it's kind of interesting talking to you guys and experiencing it each episode week to week. This is why I hate like the binge model because episodes don't get to breathe; they kind of get muddled together. So like
Yes.
I had this answered for me very quickly, so I didn't give it too much thought initially. But seeing how it's set up, these are my favorite parts of the show. It's when they do something different. They introduce new
Right.
ideas and new concepts because for me, it was very much like, okay, that happens, that happens. They did this thing, they did that thing. That's cool, that's great. But this episode for me, along with the previous one with Bill and Frank, it's really where I got to sit down and I was like glued to my screen because like, okay, this is what I'm invested in. So this entire subplot is very interesting and new, and the preview alone shows where this might be going. But I really love that we got two new characters and we got to introduce new concepts in the world of The Last of Us because the world is bigger than Joel and Ellie. And I
Yes.
appreciate that the show is focusing on that because when we get to The Last of Us Part 2, no spoilers, but they make sure they hammer home that the world is bigger than just Joel and Ellie. And so I think it's going to help going forward as well, just like showing us different characters, different storylines, and how across the country they're going to see different scenarios as they move along on their journey.
I love that you mentioned the whole thing about it's bigger than Joe and Ellie because the brilliance of it in the writing is that the best expansion of a world is when you're able to make it feel bigger without losing the thread that drew people in to begin with.
Yeah.
And that is,
Yeah.
I think, this show's biggest achievement so far. Because we came here, we arrived because of Joel and Ellie, but we're staying for everything else that they're doing to make that relationship feel that much richer and this world to feel that much richer. And moments like this are like, this is it. They're
Yeah.
doing the thing.
Yes.
Excitement level.
So high.
Like, yes.
Yep.
Dear
When you
James Gunn, stop putting your Superman stuff everywhere. Thank you. I get it. Superman Legacy's coming out. Slow down, man. Slow
I
down.
get that reference. I get that
Yes.
reference. Um, I love the idea of Henry and Sam being around. I love how I think we should talk about it now. We find them at the end of the episode.
So good. I love this
Literally
moment.
like waking up Joel and Ellie at gunpoint.
We've got to back
ha-
up though.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to close with Joel and Ellie. That's what I was thinking.
We could do that, but I
Go.
kind of want to talk about this now. I just love
Okay, go.
how resourceful Joel thinks he is. Right? Like he gets all of the glass.
That's
and
old
Ellie's
man
just like,
Joel.
yeah, it's just like, what are you doing? It's like, because we want he explains it like she's a child, like she's 5. We want to be able to hear them if
Yeah.
someone breaks
And she
in.
goes, "Oh, crunch, crunch."
Yeah.
We hear
Oh,
that.
crunch, crunch. I
Yeah,
get
and
it.
it's just like, okay, that's cute. I love how the relationship's evolving.
Yes.
But I also just love the small detail of Ellie just makes offhanded comment about his hearing. He goes to sleep on one side, wakes up on the other side, which is why he didn't hear them enter.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, that's so subtle, but so genius.
Right.
So I'm glad. Go, Brett.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, that was a great little detail. I thought that was awesome. One thing, and I'll be a little nitpicky, and maybe they address this in the next episode, but I was just like, they just walked up this like abandoned building up to like what, the 33rd floor, and I'm like, really, what are the odds Henry and Sam dropped it on them and got in there without having to go through that door and get past the crunch, 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 unless they did, and like you said, Joel just didn't hear them crunching on it. Or I think in one of the shots it looks like there's like an open window behind them. I could be misremembering. When I think you first see Henry, it looks like the window is like open. So, but I'm just like, that's a pretty lucky that you stumbled upon them on the 33rd floor. But I'm being nitpicky.
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
I have a feeling based on how smart they've been so far.
Yeah.
If you remember the game, Henry and Sam are holed up in an office building.
Right.
So, and when they meet Henry and Sam, it's because they stumble onto their hideout.
Right.
So what? So the only logical explanation would be is that they were already there, like in a separate room,
Right.
and maybe Henry just waited till they slept, and that's when he
Yeah,
makes
they could have heard
contact.
them, because Ellie won't shut up. So there's a
Yeah,
chance
they
if
could
they
have
were
heard them
already in
going
there,
up
they
the
could have heard
stairs.
him coming up.
That's true.
Right,
Maybe.
right.
But it's
I
like
d-
in this huge city, and then this like building that
Yeah,
has 40
true.
plus floors. I'm just like, oh, all right, it's very convenient. But like, I don't know, maybe they do address it in a further episode. I'm not going to be that guy, but I just wanted to bring that up a little bit.
Now this is the moment where I wanted to get, because this is the moment that kind of explains, I think, to a degree, why Joel slept on his other side. Because you got to think about this. Most of the times where you go to sleep and you wake up in a completely different position, you're either sleeping really bad or you're sleeping so good that you're just somewhere else, right?
Right.
And this shot to me was very important because this is the first time we see Joel smiling. This is the first time that we see Joel laughing. And it's
Yeah.
because of Ellie. The idea that without him noticing, he's opening up himself to Ellie, and he's opening up himself to feel alive. And it's so powerful. And the idea that he laughed so hard and had such a good time for that second that he was able to sleep soundly.
Yeah.
But that's what causes him to fail to protect her, which is like,
Yeah.
it's go.
No, it lulled him into like a sense of like safety.
Yeah.
I think. Well, also he's probably exhausted, as we saw him. Like he did not sleep the night before. He was up
Right.
guarding the forest all night,
Right.
and then they just did 33 floors. And
36.
also he was involved in like almost dying. Earlier that day. Like he's
Yes.
had a long day, so I think he's just wiped. But I think there is like a sense of maybe security or safety that he's starting to feel with Ellie. Even like
Right.
there is that sense of dare I say, like family, or like but we get to see the Joel that we saw in the first episode a little bit kind of peek out.
Exactly.
How he was
Exactly.
with his daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, like just the the source material is so good, and they kept a lot of it, and Pedro Pascal just peeling back the layers on Joel. It's great. Like what 4 episodes in, and like what 3-dimensional characters we have, like just real. It's great. You know what I mean? It really is just an astounding show.
Yeah. What I love about that moment though is that's the first time I think Joel has accepted, what's going on, and him opening up to Ellie.
Yeah.
But subtly, top of the episode, he's already opening up to Ellie. Because remember when they first start interacting, he's just like, rule number one is you do not talk about me or my past. We're not going to talk about any of that. And then they're in the car, and he's just going on and on about Tommy and how Tommy gets into trouble and how he's got to save him. It's like, Joel, what?
And
You're
Ellie
not
calls
supposed
him
to talk
out. It's
to
like, it's a long story. Is it longer than 25 hours?
right.
Yeah.
Like,
Good point.
Right. But it's like
point.
he would have nipped that in the bud like in 2 seconds in episode 2. And
Right.
so I just love how naturally over time he's been getting more and more open with her. Them talking about the coffee, them having to fight the hunters.
Smells like burnt shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the most obscure reference to the video games I think any episode will ever have in this show. Because it's
Right.
an optional line of dialogue that most people probably didn't trigger. But anyway, I just really love how we slowly see him open up, and Pedro does a fantastic job portraying that, because
Yeah.
you literally slowly see him change over time, and it's fantastic. He's still playing the same character, but he's adding, like you were saying, Brett, he is a 3-dimensional character, and you start to see those small nuances in his performance as each episode goes on.
Yeah. He could have they could have easily just had him been like, I'm gruff, grumpy guy, and he could have just been like really one note, a lesser actor would play every line like that, and someone like him, I think dude just has chops, and he cares about what he's doing. And I think also like Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, I think they really do have a respect for the source material. I think you could really tell that they really, and they know how much this means to people. and they know how much they want that HBO money.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
that's really what matters.
Yeah, and the interesting is like they understand that it's a good story. Like the
Yeah,
script is good, right? Like they know that they're doing something that's good. It's beyond whether or not it's game.
yeah.
Like no,
There's
the
a
story's just
confidence.
good.
There's a
Yeah,
confidence in
there's
there
confidence in the material. There's
from, I think,
confidence.
everyone involved, from the
Yep.
the director to the cinematographer to the editing to the acting,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And before we jump into our last part, which is our Easter eggs, right? Which we've spoken a lot about a lot of them already.
Yeah.
Um, one of the craziest things that we learned in this episode is, did you guys know that diarrhea is hereditary?
Yeah, I hear it runs in your genes.
So good. And what a sweet moment, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was such a sweet moment.
And
And
his reaction is like any of like all of our dads would have reacted and said,
yeah,
"That's so stupid,
yeah.
so goddamn stupid." And he
Yeah, but
just
you just
starts
You
laughing.
laugh,
laughing. It's
motherfucker.
horrible. Yeah.
It's just like, yeah,
It's
that's
so good.
so great.
Now we meet Henry, we meet Sam, we go to a cliffhanger. Episode 5, it's gonna be huge, guys. Like, we're not gonna show the preview here. If you haven't seen it, I have no idea what you're doing with your life, but it's okay. If you don't want to see it, that's fine. But it feels like it's, when it comes to action, when it comes to video game moments, it's gonna be the biggest episode so far. Not only that, it was so big of an episode that HBO took pity on the Super Bowl and said, you know what, it's okay. We're not going to air it on Sunday. We're going to air it on Friday because, we're not going to take eyes away from y'all. So that's how I feel. But guys, we're getting episode 5 on Friday. I'm very excited for it. And I want to take a moment to say this, guys. Next week is Valentine's week. So a lot of us will be spending time with our significant others. So we will not be recording on Tuesday night, a regular night. We're just going to move it one day for that week. We're going to be recording on Wednesday, the 15th. That's going to be when we cover episode 5. And then the week after, we just go back to a regular schedule of every Tuesday at 8:30 talking The Last of Us. But I'm excited for episode 5, guys. It looks like it's going to be
Yeah.
bloated, but exciting.
I'm sitting here and these aren't spoilers, but I'm just sitting here like, yeah, episode 5 is great. Episode 7's good too. And I'm just like, you know what? Every episode from this point forward, it's just a masterpiece. You guys are gonna love it.
I'm so excited.
I trust our resident mycologists because every single scientist that we've seen on this show has actually had good information.
Yeah.
Horrible
Very true.
information, but good information nonetheless.
Trust their sources.
Yes. Are you guys ready to go to our Easter egg section?
Before
Sure
we
am.
do, though,
Oh,
I just
go.
want to address this question from G Techie. Do you predict Ellie killed Riley in the show? Which is why, she says this was not her first time. I can't say,
Ooh.
so I'll let you guys go.
Ooh.
So
She doesn't in the game though. Or at least we don't see that.
Okay. Yeah, I
That I
actually
know.
have.
Also,
I never played
clearly
Left
video
Behind.
game spoiler, guys. You
Yeah.
know
Right.
that by now.
Because I know that, so in Left Behind, you go to this mall with Ellie and Riley, right? And you spend time there. And at some point, it triggers an encounter with a bunch of runners. There's no clickers because Ellie's never seen a clicker until she's out with Joel. So
Right.
there's a bunch of runners in the mall, and both her and Riley get bit. Um, and literally the way it closes is, so we're gonna do the crazy thing. They don't say it, but they go Thelma and Louise. Let's just wait it out and go crazy together. But what happens is that Ellie doesn't go crazy. So we know that Riley turns. We just don't know what happens to Riley. But it would be very interesting, G Techie, if, and very heartbreaking if that's what happens, especially with the type of relationship that Ellie has with Riley. As we move forward into the episode, spoilers again.
Yeah.
when we get to that moment, because we do see teasers on the trailer that we're going to be seeing Left Behind on the season one.
Right.
So it's I
Yeah, I
don't
mean
know.
that's
That's
I'm
great.
I'm thinking that that is the totally the route they're going. I mean, makes sense
Probably
like story wise, and that like yeah, she had to like make a great sacrifice,
right.
at that point when she wasn't turning and had to protect herself. So yeah, I'm almost like 100% positive that's where they're going.
Yeah.
But hey, they could totally flip it on its head. Um, we'll see.
Yeah. So Easter egg time.
Yeah.
Hey,
Cool. Bill's gas siphon. At the end of the chapter with Bill, the last conversation that Bill and Joel have, when he says, "Get out of my town. We're squared. We don't owe anything." Bill throws a siphon to Joel and says, "You'd be surprised how many cars have gas in them." So that's definitely a Easter egg to the game. No pun intended. Volume 2, TOO,
Yeah.
by Will Livingston, um, is also in the game. That's the book of puns that she talks. Uh, all the puns that Ellie talks about. The magazine Breaking, which is the male Playboy magazine
Yeah.
that belonged to Bill and was very sticky. That whole sequence, it's almost I did yeah. That's I'm
Yeah.
just saying what she said, bro.
Hey, you're right. You're right.
oh man,
That whole sequence, that whole dialogue, almost verbatim, it's in the game. And also, very particular, Ellie's in the back seat in that scene. So they even staged it perfectly.
Right.
Because there's moments in the game where she's in front or whatever, but they made it like it was just mwah.
it's also again just reminiscent of Joel driving Sarah, and Sarah
Yes.
would be in the back seat, and
Yes.
it's just like, oh, I
Yeah.
see the mirroring. I went to film school. I understand
Yeah.
what's happening here.
I
Yes.
know you're
Cinematic parallels.
We already talked about that's a winner moment. Another moment that I loved, which is Road Trip Ellie. I'm not even tired. And then
true.
and I
Immediately.
love the quick edit.
Yeah.
And we see her just trash, like just asleep. That is literally edit directly from the game. Like
Yeah,
it's
and it's great.
ridiculous how exact. It's just freaking brilliant. So freaking brilliant. The blockade, the ambush, help me. That sequence fused with the hotel moment where Ellie first shoots someone, which I think this is very interesting. So, if people remember the Hunters arc, there's a lot of traversal in this section
Right.
because you're literally going through the city, you're going to different stores, you're going to different. The hotel is a big set piece, and I love how they did the same thing as in the Capitol building. Instead of Fedra, they did the pack of runners in episode 2. Here, it's not water, but they're still choking Joel. So
Yeah.
it's still like the same kind of scene. So that was
Right.
mwah, very interesting, beat for beat. Did you guys cash, catch the pile of burnt bodies in an offshoot scene in the show? So as they're driving through the city, trying to
Yes.
find out
Yes.
where the QC. There's a shot where you see a pile of burnt bodies. That is an optional um, conversation with Ellie as you're traversing into the hunter's hideout. You see a pile of dead bodies just burned to a crisp, and Ellie literally goes, "But these people weren't infected. Like this is just regular people. That was just
Yeah,
it's
Yep.
it's the world is brutal, but that's like boom, boom, boom.
I
The
mean,
dial go.
we also saw like Joel do that in like what episode 1 in the when we flash forward and he's
Yes.
taking the
Yeah.
bodies
They're
and
throwing
yeah.
Yep.
bodies in there. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah.
I've been in both sides that particular conversation. Um, and then last but not least, Henry and Sam being hunted. which because when we meet them, we know they're not in the game. They're not originally from Pittsburgh, where the game takes place.
Right.
They're just traversing through, looking for supplies. But here, and they're still being hunted. Hence the hunter's arc. They're still being hunted here, and then the fact that rebels took down the QZ and Fedra.
Yep.
Did I miss anything? Did you guys think of anything else that I maybe have missed?
Well, again, just Joel's coffee. I can finally explain that one a little bit in detail.
Yes.
It's such a weird Easter egg. So in the
Yes.
game, when you're in the hotel,
Yep.
there is
Rivers Lake Coffee. That's the
yeah,
name of the place
Yeah.
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in the hotel, and there's like a weird optional, like it's in a corner, like coffee machine, and Joel just stares at it and says, "Oh, I really miss coffee." So what's funny is that since this is the alternate timeline where Bill is a happy person, and he says, "Joel, take all the supplies." Joel makes sure he grabs coffee,
Yes.
and so it's
Coffee.
like,
He grabs coffee.
His coffee.
yes, and so it's just like such a niche, like minute detail that they did not have to do,
Right.
but it's funny.
It's
I
healthy
actually,
fan service. That's
yeah.
healthy fan service. That's how it looks like.
Yeah,
And speaking of coffee, when she says that line to him early in the episode, says it smells like shit. The second she says that, immediately takes
He
another
just-
swig and like slurps it, and it's great. And I just love, like, I love that. Those little
Yes.
moments are so good.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
110%. I don't know, guys. I think that's the show. We've
It's
done the thing.
we've done the thing. I just have one question for you guys, because
Yes.
we'll talk about it more in depth next week. But how are we feeling about the age difference between Ellie and Sam?
Yeah, wow, that's a good point. Yeah, I was like, I remember because again, I'm remembering back when I played the game, like whatever, 8 years, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Sam's usually about her age in the game, and he's
Yeah.
clearly
He's
much
just
younger
maybe a
here.
year younger or like
Yep.
one or
Yeah,
2 years younger. Here he's like what, 5 years younger?
If she's 14, yeah, he's probably around like 10, I think. So
yeah,
yeah,
9 or 10 or
roughly.
something like that. They're
Yeah.
looking like.
Yeah.
Which for children, that's a big deal. For us, it doesn't matter at the adult age, but
Right.
going
No,
from
yeah,
9
that
to
makes a big
15 is a big,
difference. Yeah.
Yes. I remember the conversation that when you meet Henry and Sam, you see Sam talking to Ellie and he talks like, "Oh, I'm this old," and then Henry goes, "Oh, really? You're that old?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I do find it interesting also because I think in the trades they mentioned that this version of Sam is deaf. So I do find that
Yeah, I saw. Well,
particularly interesting, and I'm waiting to see how that plays into.
that was interesting. I remember, well, in the in the preview for the next episode, you do see a quick shot of Henry talking to Sam. Well, talking to Sam, but he's like signing to him or making
Yeah,
like motions to him. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't remember that. I'm like, that was one thing that stuck out. I was like, I don't remember there being a deaf character. So
yeah.
that's interesting. That's gonna definitely I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be so much more tragic. Then I don't know. He's younger and he's deaf, and I'm like, so you're gonna just really. Well, hey, listen, they could totally flip things on their head in this. I don't know like where they're going, but just off the bat, I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be so much more tragic, isn't it?
possibly.
Possibly.
They're going
We
for
don't
the
know.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, we've done the thing. We can't wait for episode 5. Remember, we are back here next week, Wednesday the 15th at 8:30 p.m. We are talking Last of Us here on Beyond the Clickers. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for those that joined us through the show. G you're amazing. Appreciate your comments and your questions. You're great. For those that have been pumping up the show and watching we've seen all the rewatches. You guys are enjoying this, so thank you for the love. Brett, if people wanted to find you and all the things you're up to, where can they?
That's right. Twitter at SuperBreckCon. And you can find me also weekly. Every Friday, we release an episode of the Fanboy Podcast. So you can find us on Twitter at the Fanboy Show. And you can head to YouTube. And if you go to the Superman on Film channel, you will find the Fanboy Podcast there as well. So if you want to watch the video version, otherwise, Fanboy Podcast and all your favorite podcast services, me and my dear friend Mario, covering all the geeky news every week. A lot of DC stuff lately, which is awesome. But we cover DC, Marvel, video games, and any general action, science fiction kind of stuff that overlaps with the nerd sphere.
Nice. And I could probably say this: you can find me and Mike and all things to chatter after, talking movies, talking to creators, talking news, and you can find us talking anime at the Amateur Otaku because that's what we do. Anything you want to drop here, Mike? Any announcement? Anything in particular?
Well, same old stuff's happening here on the chatter after almost on a daily basis. Monday, we're going to be reacting to Super Bowl trailers, which is, why The Last of Us episode is also being pushed to Wednesday and not happening on Monday. So we'll see how the Scarlet fan reacts to that Flash trailer first look thing.
I am not watching it till Monday, so it's going to be a genuine reaction.
Maybe we'll do it live. If you guys want us to do it live, let us know. We can all do it together and experience it together. We'll see.
Yes. Yeah, that's all we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you for joining us. You guys are awesome. We will see you on the next episode of Beyond the Clickers. And as the great Savage Starlight would always say, endure,
Susage
survive. Peace.